Good morning, peasants. I hope you're having a great day. We're going to go ahead and jump right in. We've got some January 6th stuff we need to address. Right now, starting out, for those of you on audio only, you're going to hear a lot of noise with a little bit of overplay. I apologize. We are watching a January 6th video of what they call the tunnel. Many times you'll hear me reference Roseanne Boyland as a second woman who was killed on January 6th, in addition to Ashley Babbitt. And a lot of the people in the videos we're going to watch here, I've met, served time with, spent time in DC with. These guys are often called the tunnel rats. And when you see images of, quote, violence on J6 and attacking cops, this video is the video that everybody needs to see.
January 6th, 2021. Lower West Terrace Tunnel, 4:21 p.m. Roseanne Boyland is struck in the face with a pepper ball that is fired by Capitol Police. Ooh. As people choke and gasp, protester and police officer alike, the demonstrators are pushed out of the tunnel into a pile on the steps. You can see the clouds of gas flowing over the trapped protesters as 31 pepper ball rounds collide with the roof and walls, drenching everyone in the tunnel in deadly chemical.
Notice how the people in the back are just standing. Mm-hmm. So this is an issue of crowd. There's nowhere for these people to go.
Irritants. After the protesters were pushed out of the tunnel, Roseanne is seen laying unconscious on the ground, bleeding from the mouth and nose. Then DC Metro Police Officer Lila Morris picks up a stick and beats Roseanne to death with it.
Okay, so she's right here. We see her on the ground here behind the bar. And this is the officer, Nyla Mora, and she has an actual stick, not a baton. She got a stick from somewhere. Notice her. See these guys? See what's happening? These guys all served prison time. Every one of them. Every single one of them.
The protesters pull Roseanne away from the police to do CPR on her as the police continue to spray.
Okay, do you see this? So here they're going in and out. You see this video pretty commonly. They're doing CPR on this woman. They're standing over her body, sending stuff back that's been thrown their direction. Did you see what's happening here?
Yeah. Pepper gas on the protesters, trying to save her life. After desperately trying to save Roseanne,
these guys who had riot shields got charged with burglaries and assault with deadly weapons because these riot shields were considered deadly weapons. But look at how they're using them.
And life via CPR. The protesters present her to the police so they can save her life.
They're saying, you killed her. You did this. You killed her. Notice he's doing CPR right there. These guys all serve prison time. Every single one of them. These are the violent. These are the people that were considered violent. Now, notice he's wearing a gas mask.
Yep.
Right? So they'd use the fact he's wearing a gas mask against him. Fine and dandy, but look at what he's involved with. Who cares? They're trying to give her, so they give her to the police. They finally got her in there.
Dragging Roseanne away like
after all that violence.
DC Metro breaks the defibrillator and doesn't know how to operate it.
Go to Fed.
The official cause of death in 2021 was amphetamine overdose.
Oh, come on. Okay.
So this one video right here is the video the world didn't get to see. Or if you got to see it, you only got to see it with Rachel Maddow being like, look at them violently assaulting cops trying to overthrow the government.
I honestly have never seen that.
Can you believe these people are going to be let loose at Walmart? They're actually willing to protect somebody. You cannot have that in our never-ending war against the Second Amendment. I wanted to do this video first because these are the people that have been demonized this whole time. Everybody's got a story. There's 1,560 plus of us that all have our unique story. My story's told on peasantsperspective.com. You can see the link to the podcast we did 4 years ago, right after I got back from DC on everything I did. Some of these guys in here, like one guy I was in DC with, Scott Miller, he was a paramedic. He's given her CPR. He's the one who cut her coat off thinking she'd been shot because of the way she was lifeless. Right? That was something he recognized as a paramedic. And so he cut off her coat and was part of the CPR. And when she was getting hit with a stick, he went and grabbed a flagpole and bonked that officer on the helmet with the top of the flagpole to get her to look up and be like, she needs first aid, not a beating.
Right.
We were just giving her CPR. We brought you over here and you guys start hitting her with a stick. And he got assault with a deadly weapon, 111B, and I think he got a 5-year sentence. He was one cell over from me. That's why. That's why we got pardons. Is how do you untangle this? How do you untangle it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted to show that video up front because I reference Roseanne Boyland quite often, and I wanted to make sure that, for the record, our little record here, that I've shown you what I'm talking about. That oftentimes when you see these videos of chaos and pushing cops and all this stuff, there's some context in here that's not being told, that the video can't capture.
Well, obviously, because I have to apologize again. I had to apologize once for not knowing who Ashley Babbitt was. I don't know who Roseanne Boyland is.
Well, now you do.
Now I do.
But the world and the congressional record and the presidential logs all have cops dying that day. Who are they? I will personally write $1 million check for any cops that were murdered at the January 6th Capitol incident. I'd like to make a bronze sculpture for them. And I just need a photo, just something simple. Anything, anybody, any names, any mugshots, any photos, employment photos, those really fancy ones they take of cops in front of flags, anything? Do you see how this is crazy? This is crazy. Like, to what lengths do we go to cover this stuff and hide this stuff? You know what I'm saying? Like, here we are sitting 4 years later. I've done real time in prison, right? These guys have done real time in prison, and these are the violent ones. So when you hear people like this, and part of me has to give huge kudos to Nancy Mace here, because Nancy Mace went from the Republican that wanted to stick around during the riot, confront the rioters, get punched in the face, and be the mascot of assaulted Congress or whatever. She really, really had it out for the J6ers 4 years ago. So she's come a long ways here. So let's listen to what she says, and then I want to add a little bit of critique to it.
Do you agree with Senator Lindsey Graham about that President Trump made a mistake when he pardoned the violent offenders in the January 6th Capitol riot?
Okay. Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is Mr. Institution. Every time, all the time, every time. Right? I've never been a big fan. He comes and goes as far as if his vote helps us or not and his support, but he's an old bull. He drags a lot of senators along with him. He controls huge amounts of PAC money. He's pretty nestled in there in South Carolina, right? So Lindsey Graham has done the whole, okay, I'm going to split the baby. Yeah, he shouldn't have pardoned the violent January 6 rioters. They never define what violent is. Are these guys all around the video I just showed? Everybody there got violent charges, every single person. Everybody in camera shot of there that wasn't in the back just standing still, those are the misdemeanor people back there. Tragic. Houses should never be raised for just standing back there. But the guys up there, those are the guys that sat in prison for 4 years. Those are the guys that sat on home confinement. Those are the guys and I'm in that group because I was indicted when they were, right? But I'm saying this was a 4-year blank nightmare. Okay, there was not going to be relief anytime soon. The involvement in this was looking like it was going to be a decade to a 15-year process. I was going to be into this thing 13 years before I was done with probation and all the other stuff. Think about that for a second. Right? So So Lindsey Graham saying, well, I shouldn't have piloted non-violent. Okay, great. Now you can come to the MSNBC panels and the CNN panels, and you can keep going to your cocktail parties. But really, you're just protecting the Capitol Police, because the violent offenders are the ones you just saw there, right? If a jury could have seen that and had it explained, I don't know, in D.C., I don't think you could get a fair jury regardless. But on the bulk, the American people look at something like that and they go, hey, that's like Daniel Penny. Hey, that's like Kyle Rittenhouse, and we'll mention it here in a second. You see what it really is when you can see it. So I just let you guys see it.
Nice.
Right? So here's Nancy Mace being asked. Lindsey Graham, he's decided to do the I'm going to protect the institution scene. Yeah. Praying grandma, she needed a pardon. Absolutely, by the way. When I say that, if it sounds derogatory, it's not. But I'm saying when they get up on this kick about violent, remember, these are the people they're talking about. So when they say shouldn't have violated the nonviolent offenders, that would have kept the story of Roseanne Boyland in the BOP. It would have kept it under severe communication restriction and really unable to be told. But the cat's out of the bag.
I would like to know, were all those Antifa people and Black Lives Matter people, when they were arrested and thrown in jail for the violent crimes they committed, even in South Carolina, it wasn't just Portland, Oregon, it was all across the country, but the folks who were at J6 and have served their time for the crimes they did, they've done that, and I support President Trump.
But there were people who were let out of prison for violent attacks.
There were people
like Thomas Councilman who were let out of prison.
I would like to know your thoughts on the people that tried to burn Charleston down after the Black Lives Matter riots. Where were you when people were with long barrel guns coming into downtown Charleston? And I'm telling you, and I have always said that people who did the crime should do the time, and they've done that. He has released them, and I support that. But somebody like you in the legacy media wants to give everybody a pass for Antifa members, Black Lives Matter members that tried to burn cities down and didn't serve a single day in jail. And I will tell you, ever since I was assaulted, and I've been saying no men with penises in women's bathrooms, I was physically assaulted. I get death threats every day. Not a single person has been arrested for the acts of violence against me. So where are you on that? You're nowhere because you're part of the legacy media. See, you're a dying breed. All right.
A little jab at the end there.
Should have got that a-hole on camera.
Yeah, I'm noticing these guys are really going overboard with the crosses lately. It's like Mike Lindell's really caught on. I love it. It doesn't bother me. Just noticing more and more prominence of like cross jewelry. Okay, so that's great. Nancy, you've come a long ways. At least at this point, she's just saying, let's move on. I don't like the comparison of, well, you didn't go after Antifa and BLM. We are not the same. Antifa BLM did attack law enforcement and first responders. BLM Antifa did do those things. Right. In January 6th, on large part, that was not the case.
That was
I
just
can understand the comparison.
did.
I can understand the comparison with my case in a very specific situation because I'm not one of those tunnel rats. But in large majority, these are not comparable. Right. So just those peasants, we see the world for what it is. A is A, 2 + 2 = 4. Don't tell me not to believe my lion eyes. Right.
And for the January 6th, they just claimed there was violence, even though it's really hard to find. With all the Antifa and BLM stuff everywhere, it's completely obvious. It's all just is violence.
Yes. So what they did with January 6th was they turned around and they did something they had essentially perfected on a micro scale. So everybody remembers the story of Kyle Rittenhouse. I believe we covered it pretty extensively. And I like Kyle. Okay. To me, there's this attitude of team play, like it's right versus left. And once you're, on one side, you have to play. I don't do it, man. Prison, microcosm of life, gangs everywhere, cliques everywhere. I don't want to I'm just not into it. You know what I mean? Look, he's entitled to his opinions. He's entitled to like Trump, not like Trump. I don't give a blankety blank, right? If the boot's coming from the right or left, it's a boot on my neck. Okay. That's pretty simple. But Kyle Rittenhouse's situation was dire, right? Went to a BLM protest in the with the idea of being a protector, first responder, had his first aid kits there, was armed with an AR-15, legally carrying the weapon, defended himself, right? Legally, ultimately, right? And was acquitted by a jury and everything. But that entire story, the media around him and then the accusations and stuff like that. So,
they got whipped up.
So this is just, I don't know where this clip comes. I think this comes from Joe Rogan podcast. It's kind of older, but it's talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse story. They did this in mass to the January 6ers. Of all the January 6ers with like, quote, positive news coverage, not a lot. You know what I mean? Not a lot.
The Kyle Rittenhouse story. I hated that kid. The corporate media told me he was a white supremacist who didn't live in that community. He traveled across state lines with guns to shoot 3 black people at a Black Lives Matter rally, and I hated him. And then I watched the trial, and it turns out he did live in that community. He didn't travel across state lines with guns, and he didn't shoot 3 black people. He shot 3 white people, and I was like,
race was a major theme in the U.S. media commentary, although Rittenhouse and those he shot were white.
white?
Isn't that wild? Not only were they white, like these guys are like career criminals. One guy was a pedophile.
The one guy pulled a gun on him.
Yeah.
And
the media just fucked that kid, and he won.
The Kyle Rittenhouse story.
So that's what they did to January 6ers. They gave him the Rittenhouse treatment. And again, there's this nothing new under the sun element to this. When you study history, it's like, oh, this is just kind of how they do it.
Right.
You know, this is the playbook. It's pretty simple. And so using these words hyperbolically, because I don't expect anybody to go out and do anything physically beyond controlling your eyes, your dollars, and your clicks.
And voting.
Right? But this is why we need to fight back. We need to stand up. We need to stand through this. And so the solution to some of these problems, like, for example, censorship, is more speech, right? You flood the zone. Look what's happening in Canada right now with speech against whatever the accepted narrative is. And again, this comes down to this concept of like the builders of the fence and the sheep inside of it. You know what I mean? So listen to this video. This is in Canada. The police are making a little stop over a social media group. So pay attention to the details in this.
Sorry, since you're at my home, can I just get your name and your badge number, please?
I have a card here.
Okay.
It's Erica Ingram.
Thank you.
And this is just some information about...
This is an officer talking.
That's all it is.
Okay, so you saw something on my Facebook?
No, on the Facebook group.
Okay.
On the group.
And decided to come to my personal residence to give me information about peaceful protest?
Yes.
Okay, so are the Peterborough Police, no, you're with OPP? Are you guys now monitoring people's Facebook pages or Facebook groups to who comments as to what their status updates are or what they're doing or within the group?
Like, because of the protests happening province-wide, yes, we have been monitoring the protests.
Okay.
So there's a protest coming up. I'm simply providing you with information about a peaceful protest, and now I'm leaving.
Oh, okay.
That is all.
So
some would call this a show of force.
The Ontario Provincial Police are watching.
Think about the resources deployed.
And what people are doing on Facebook in different groups, whether or not they're commenting, participating, liking, and you guys are now doing service calls to give people information about peaceful protest.
It's just a proactive measure to make sure you understand your rights about peaceful protesting.
I have a copy of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, so I'm well with it.
The hammer's coming, so we just want you not to be able to use the excuse, I didn't know.
In that and very understanding of that. I appreciate that. I'm hoping that you guys aren't going to waste our tax dollars continuing to do this to everybody, but now it's nice to know that we're being watched. So,
do you have any questions? The number is on the card.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, what time is it? That's our 51st state. Can you believe that nonsense going on up there?
For everyone within the sound of my voice, have you ever thought that you posted something on Facebook that cops would show up and to let you know if it was okay or not?
This was happening in 2020.
This is
over
crazy.
COVID. Remember that?
Yeah, it's crazy though.
Yeah, local municipalities were sending cops out over COVID posts. Stuff like masks don't work and these vaccines cause myocarditis and ivermectin might actually do this
the work.
The cure, yeah. And by the way, cure your cancer at the same time. It works out funny that way. I don't know. You know what I mean? That
And
second
just as
part
a
of
PSA, you can't say any of that.
yeah, second part is misinformation. Probably the first part. It's all information. This whole show's misinformation. Depending on one man's misinformation, another man's hard fact. I don't know.
Pretty soon, they're just going to be like, you can't disseminate information.
Yeah. Purveyors of information will be shot at dawn. All right. So it's just one of those things where every show can kind of be this thing. And that's just the way it is. We're going to talk about the government and how it's working against us. This really is like a revolutionary period. And for whatever reason, I'm in this kick where it's like, it's always a revolution, right? Like, I think prison kind of did that to me where like, here and there with the guys like, oh yeah, I remember 27 years ago, we were really going to fight back against the man. And then I got wrapped up in a cocaine conspiracy. All right. Okay. I mean, I watched these like old YouTube videos of people in like 1992 and they're like, if the people knew there'd be martial law, there'd be rioting in the streets. I'm like, yeah, it's been messed up for a while.
We'll get them next time.
Yeah. The reality is if people understood the dynamic between the rulers and the ruled, right, and how they do that work, then there would always be rioting in the streets because you're going to want your freedom.
Yeah.
And there's a book by Noval Harari called Sapiens. I read it when I was in prison. I'll tell you, one of the things about being locked away for 14 months, just back to this prison kick.
Got some time on your hands.
Yeah, you got some time on your hands. And I don't like being idle anyways. So in DC, we had a tablet and that was our phone. So it kind of doubled. But when I got into the Bureau of Prisons, they had tablets, but it just wasn't. I wasn't going to do it. I saw it as a waste of time. I was going to spend my time paying for movies, listening to music, and playing solitaire, or some other games all the time. Endlessly, which,
yeah.
I don't blame a guy that got a 28-year sentence from wanting to, waste away some hours.
Right.
But I chose not to do that. So I wrote a lot. I wrote letters home every day. We sent home almost 2,000 pages of letters. I wrote supporters, and I read. That was kind of you could commonly find me writing, reading, or going somewhere, doing something, or working. So I got to read a lot, and I read the book Sapiens. And in the book Sapiens, he says this, and this kind of goes to the relationship between the rulers and the ruled. But he says, and in the book, it's in context, it makes perfect sense. But he goes, a priest can do the work of 100 soldiers in keeping the people in the boundaries, right? And so we're at the spot where the priest, the charter of whatever, like the things that are just kind of the myths that were there to keep us in line are no longer working. And so now you're starting to see the police come out and do the work, right? To maintain social society.
Gaslighting is no longer effective.
Yes. So now we're going to use the bat. But yeah, that was a huge show of force to do that. And think about that in the context. Okay, they're monitoring social media. Everybody knows things on the internet last forever. Hello, if you haven't figured that out. But it's at the same time, it's like, what's the government role in this? All right. So diving deeper into this government corruption, we're at this super cool point where you've got just nothing is staying hidden. I shouldn't say nothing. There's plenty that's hidden. There's what we know we don't know, right? But at the same time, you're starting to see this massive unraveling, and it's at a level that's really hard for the people trying to keep it from unraveling, from getting their hands around it. And a lot of that has to do with the media environment. So this is Matt Gaetz, former member of Congress, right, on the Timcast show. The Timcast show is hitting same kind of ratings that any of the cable news networks are hitting. And he's saying things like this. And this is what you don't see on the Tell Lie Vision, because they're on the other side. Notice how both Fox plays the fence. They play the people and the government. You see both sides. But CNN and MSNBC, just pay attention. Every clip and every storyline and every headline that you see from them is from the perspective and from the bias of the government good. Every time. And all the big publications too. Really all the ones that USAID money seems to be coming into. Right? And at this point now, even they have accepted the narrative that it's Trump against the government. So they're not taking the government side, which is now Trump's regime. They're now taking his employee side against Trump. You know what I'm saying? Like, these guys are nuts. Okay, so they're protecting the blob, clearly.
That is
right?
a little bit weird when you think about it that way.
Yeah, so like 3 weeks ago, they were like, look, Biden's closing off all this oil fracking in the ocean. What great, good, awesome. Trump comes in, they're like, no, bad. You know, and they're in defense. It's like whatever. So, okay, so Matt Gaetz is going to talk money laundering and Ukraine.
I think that the reason we are as involved in Ukraine as we are is because Afghanistan wound down. And if we still had Afghanistan to launder money through, there probably wouldn't be the need for this type of excessive involvement in Ukraine. But I think we can look at Afghanistan and we can look at what's going on here and say what a lot of these defense contractors are pushing toward is how to have an extended kind of low yield war. Like if there's a way to stretch this thing out, turn it into a 20, 30 year kind of thing where there's a whole lot of money moving around and unaccountable pots and a lot of weapons getting bought. And then, oh man, the stockpiles, well, we got to spend more money to reload those.
That's it. Okay. So Afghanistan, 9/11 happens and Osama bin Laden is hiding in the mountains of Pakistan.
Right.
So we invade Afghanistan, go all through the mountains there, disrupt anything and everything they've got going on as far as their tribal lives and their whatever. It's kind of tough area. Okay. 20 years. Taliban were running the place. They were brutal. They were horrible. But it's their place. Is what it is. The people tolerate it. Okay? That's just kind of how it works. We come in, push the Taliban higher into the hills. We fight this insurgent war for 20 years. Tons of blood, untold amounts of treasure, and then we leave. And the Taliban take back over. But we left them weapons, munitions, and biometric data in order to now control their sheep. So what did we do for 20 years?
We protected the poppy fields.
We should just cut them a check. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this unbelievably painful reality for people who went over and served time in Afghanistan.
And lost.
But I just gave you a really high level explanation of what happened there. And they were laundering money the whole time. Period. This went into the paychecks of factory workers here in America who were completely unaware of that there was death and suffering happening so that you could have your 9 to 5. Right? On top of just the sheer raw, that's the honest way about it. Just the sheer raw corruption of it up. So here, Matt Gaetz, he's been saying this for a long time. He's on Timcast saying that. You're not hearing that on the news, but here's the net effect of that. So here's Zelensky, right? And this comes from Ian Miles Chong. Shout out to him. But these videos are all over Telegram. I've seen them for years now, like ever since this war started. I would see these videos of where the Ukrainians, because they're conscripting, which is the draft, they're just going up and picking up able-bodied males to take them. So this video here, these people are screaming in Ukraine, but the military, police, whatever it is shown up to take a guy and put him on the front lines. So because there's this corruption and this need for this military-industrial complex and this low-yield war, this guy's going to have to go put himself in the path of a bullet. By force. He's being taken by force off the streets. He's been tracked down. His draft number came up, and now he's not volunteering. This isn't private country here. They're not fighting for Ukraine, fighting proudly, fighting bravely. No, they're being ripped off the streets and forced to go and fight. Why? So we can build more bombs? Let's put our money in going to Mars. Sounds like it's attainable. But you're never going to solve anything doing this. Because now these people are affected. These people are hurt. Now you've got a butterfly effect going on. There's a bill to be paid here. There's a price to be paid for doing this kind of thing to people. Okay? And then you've got that country is so kind of diluted because they're being sold a myth as to why they're fighting and blah, blah, blah. You're not, you know what I mean? So here's a Ukrainian soldier, and for whatever reason, he wears an American flag on his helmet, probably his honor because we're paying for everything, right? And because now Donald Trump has come out and called everything into question, he's taken off the American flag. Look at that. He's taking it off. Okay, great.
Good thing you had Velcro.
Maybe he knows the real story that, you know, we got him into this debacle and walked him into this for mostly financial gain. or not. Trump came out and said this because now Russia's ready to get to the peace table. Look, man, I don't know what's going on over there. I just know if you speak Russian, you should probably belong to the country called Russia, especially if you voted that way like the Crimea Peninsula did. You know, but when Ukraine's just this hot spot for government NGO money laundering and it's just this big honeypot trap, financial and human trafficking, sexual stuff going. I mean, blah. Talk about a rat. I mean, Ukraine's like, woo. It was out there 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And then all of a sudden now it's like the birthplace of democracy or something. You know what I mean? Like, what? Yeah. Like, this is not democracy. That's an illusion in Ukraine. But all of a sudden now that's like democracy's last stand. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or is it the money laundering's last stand, whatever? Anyways.
That's just a USA sales pitch for the money.
I just don't have a dog in that fight. But I sympathize with the Ukrainian suffering. I sympathize with the Russian suffering. We're talking human life toll that's huge. I know the toll that my absence of just 14 months took on my family. Imagine a permanent absence. There's people on this show that have dealt with stuff like that. It's horrible. It's a huge cost. So it's time for peace. Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, this is from Donald Trump, posted on his Truth, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization? In that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us. We have a big, beautiful ocean of separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing.
Shock.
He refuses to have elections. Oh, the democracy, we have to defend democracy, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he is not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something all admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Better never tried. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine. The people of Ukraine. That's me adding that. But Zelensky has a terrible job. His country is shattered, has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. So in response to this, Zelensky took truth off of the internet in Ukraine.
Okay, well, that's telling.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Are the good guys ever the ones that do the censoring?
Nope.
Okay, I mean, it's just pretty simple. So, listen, we're going to watch this Ukraine thing. It's of critical importance to the world, but it's not important to me, which is why we shouldn't be there.
Right. It's important to my wallet.
Yeah, it's important to my wallet, but it's not important to me. If Ukraine goes back to Russia, it doesn't really affect me at all. I would rather see normalization of relations with Russia, you know what I mean, than go fight war against Ukraine. Now, I don't know that we can have normalization with Russia. I don't know. Again, kind of not my business. It's a big sovereign country that they can take care of themselves. We got other things to worry about, like Donald Trump this week acknowledging that we're going to take a look at Fort Knox. Oh, you can barely hear it.
Go into Fort Knox to make sure the gold is there. We're going to go into Fort Knox.
Maybe mute us.
Was that bad, Bob?
Are they going to eliminate more national security positions, civilians there?
We'll see what happens. But one of the things we do want to look, I mean, we hope everything's fine with Fort Knox, but we're going to go to Fort Knox, the fabled Fort Knox, to make sure the gold is there.
The president brought up.
If the gold isn't there, we're going to be very upset.
Yeah. How did they get it out of there?
If the gold isn't there, we're going to be very upset. One of the things Trump said right at the end of his think it was his nomination speech. If it wasn't, it was his election speech. It's one of the two. But it was like the last sentence. He says, "We're going to restore the republic." So I always pay attention to that because we're in a democracy. It's a republic. I've talked quite a bit about this, but obviously it's supposed to be a republic. But we've lost certain elements that, when we've given the ground and now we call it a democracy, and we use that phrase endlessly, which is part of "To the Victor Go the Myths and the Monuments," by the way. So it's part of like a revolution, is to change people's understanding of government. So when Trump says we're going to restore the republic, part of restoring the republic would be going to back some type of standardized currency, somewhere it pegs itself against some value. This has effect in a lot of ways. As time goes on, as money issues come up, we'll talk about gold bugs and how they see the new fiat currency through an old lens, which makes them say things like they want to pay off the debt, which means we would have no currency to exchange because all the currency is the debt, right? Which means you've got to introduce a new currency. You don't ever hear them. You just assume it's going to be gold, right? That's great. That's actually the objective. Step one would see, do we have enough gold to redistribute?
It's not even possible.
It is possible. You can just change it's already at a standard. Let's call it $3,000 an ounce.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You just make it a standard and then start putting a little tiny bit of gold in every coin you circulate and make the dollar redeemable. You could do it. So how much is in Fort Knox? So I love that. It's like step one, see what you actually have. Okay. I know that to me, the changing financial systems and stuff, the Gasara that you see, to me, it's so far-fetched and nonsense. Do you know what I'm talking about? Any of that?
No.
There's like a whole branch of, I'm hesitant to use the word conspiracy theory, but there's a whole branch of speculation that as we break the US dollar, we're going to go back to a gold standard and the American people will be given some kind of gold dividend. And it's got some acronym that's NISSARA, NESSRA, and GESSARA, GESSRA, or GESSA. Yeah. Anyways, it's pretty complex. You can look into it. You can dig down some deep rabbit holes. Just like everything, it's got elements of truth to it. It teaches you a lot of history about money and currency and stuff like that. But then when it gets down to the brass tacks, I'm like, I just don't see it happening. There's other things that play into that are not included in its synopsis. So I'd have to dive into it to show you what I'm talking about. But anyways, step one, go check it over. And then here's another thing too, and this is something I saw in DC. So when I was in DC, we didn't have normal cable news. We had local cable. It was weird. Maybe it was just local over the air. I have no idea. But it wasn't very many channels. And we had Scripps News, which I'd never heard of, which is like an Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Washington Post affiliate type news. So you can imagine how it leans. MSNBC's bad. Scripps is over the top. It's 2 steps further left than MSNBC. At least that's my observation. And then we would have the local, nightly news, that kind of stuff. So we watched a lot of Scripps because that was your 24-hour news. And in Scripps, every morning we'd wake up, and usually it was on a news channel or it was on a morning news channel, and it was in DC. It was another drive-by, another stabbing, another robbery. It was really bad. And DC is a weird town. Some of our listeners have been there. A lot of people haven't. I'd never been till I went on January 6th, and then I decided to go back for court hearings back and forth over and over and over again. So I got to know DC okay. And then I got to know it decently well through the inmates. So I got to see the other side of the tracks pretty good. But DC is like a 10 square mile city, and you've got the Capital District, you've got all the apartments around it, and then you've got some premier neighborhoods. But for the most part, a big chunk of it is just like the hood. Okay. It's a massive African-American population, not a lot of moving in or out. It's just kind of they've been there. It's, the darker side of town, so to speak. I hate to say that, but it's kind of what it felt like, the way they would describe it to me. And in DC, it's like this stratified society that's stratified. Everybody in DC that's African-American that's working is a car valet, serving food, they're checking bags, it's the migrant minority class is doing all the service jobs. Then you jump into, and all the white people are lawyers, lobbyists, paralegals, something to do with kind of a higher, it's like hourly versus salary.
Okay.
So it's this weird deal. Like you'll be going into a building and it's like black valet, black doorman, black security guards, black janitor, black guy in the cafeteria in the courtroom. Then you walk into the courtroom and it's like white stenographer, white paralegal, white bailiff, white marshal, white judge, white
right.
clerks. You're like, I feel like, but it's the whole, like, if you go anywhere, it's like you see that stratified nature of it, and it's the segregated because the blacks that are doing the valet job can't afford to live in the capital district overlooking the Capitol, right? And so they live out in kind of the slums of the area, and then a lot of wealthy people there live outside, like in Arlington and the surrounding. Obviously, there's like the 10 wealthiest
counties. So the
counties
wealth
are right
stratification is stark.
Stark.
Got it.
Yes, and so. But then the crime in DC is like out of control, right? Like carjackings, out of control. You drive through some of those bad neighborhoods and it's bad. I had a guard one time tell me, he's like, I'm strapped. So in DC, he's carrying a handgun. He's like, I'm strapped. I got a big ol', and he said whatever the caliber was. He's like, heaven forbid one of these young guys try to carjack me. You better get the jump. I said, I don't care what the headlines say. I'm shooting you dead. Blah, blah. This is a guard telling me this, but it's a scary city. And the guards would tell us that, like, they're like, it's a pretty scary city out there. Like, we carry, we're glad we can because we're law enforcement. They were like, it was pretty interesting. It's a tough town. So Trump here is proposing to take over governance of DC, which technically Congress is DC's government. And they've kind of created this sub-state territory government with the mayor essentially kind of acting like a governor, kind of has a seat at that table. Anyways, they've given him a lot of power. They've delegated a lot down, and he's talking about taking it back because clearly DC is a failed city, territory, district, whatever it is.
It's kind of like the Vatican with a pope.
Yeah, there's some definitely comparisons, definitely.
Do you think DC should govern itself, or do you think that governing of District of Columbia should go back to Congress?
I think that we should govern District of Columbia. It's so important, the DC situation. I think that we should run it strong, run it with law and order, make it absolutely flawlessly beautiful. And I think we should take over Washington, D.C., make it safe. People are getting killed. People are being hurt. You have a great police department there, but somehow they're not utilized properly. We should govern D.C. I think the federal government should take over the governance of D.C. and run it really, really properly. And I like the mayor. I get along great with the mayor. But they're not doing the job. Too much crime, too much graffiti, too many tents on the lawns of these magnificent lawns, and there's tents, and it's a sad thing. Homeless people all over the place, and we got to take care of the homeless. But you can't have that in Washington, D.C. When they come over to see me, like Macron is coming, and the Prime Minister of UK is coming, and all these people are coming over to see me. We'll have ultimately President Xi, and we'll have everybody coming, right? And you can't let that be. You just can't let that happen. You can't have tents all over your once magnificent plazas and lawns and all. You just can't.
One of the things I appreciate about him is he has pride in the basic little stuff, like a clean lawn, a shiny Trump sign, the gold's always polished, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I appreciate that he sees that.
I do too.
Some national pride, but yeah.
It's one of the great things about this country is the trash collection, because we don't have crap just piled up everywhere. This last month or so, we had a little bit of a winter storm here locally, and the trash collection wasn't getting picked up, and it's just piling up on the street. And it was so refreshing this last week when that finally got picked up, and I was like, just thinking about it, like, this is what makes a first world country, when you take care of your crap and you pick up your, around yourself.
Yes.
So he's really onto something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, there was a video that I've got to get. So sorry, guys, I'm going to kill a little dead hair here while I look for this video. Okay. So can we hit pause?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the patience during that microsecond of a break that you heard. Okay, so here is Ted Cruz talking about Elon Musk. So DOGE is running, right? It's being challenged in the courts. They've won a couple. They've lost a couple injunctions, blah, 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 blah. I think ultimately it's going to be fine.
Win or lose, the exposure is great.
Massive. Yes, exactly. So win or lose, I think ultimately everything's going to be fine. But here is Ted Cruz talking about this. And part of what's so terrifying about DOGE is who's doing it. Like Elon is a different caricature. He's a outside the box, don't take no for an answer kind of person. I listened to an interview with Elon Musk talking about something he was creating for Tesla, something. They had to make something, so they went and bought an abandoned factory, and then they had generators on both sides of it running the data storage and the AI, and it was incredible. But I'm like, that's an entrepreneur. That's a guy who just goes, I won't take no for an answer, which Trump is going to talk about here in a second. So here's Ted Cruz talking about Elon.
Well, look, I think Elon Musk is very much a change agent. There are 8 billion people on planet Earth, and if you assume intelligence is distributed on a bell curve, Larry, you and I have both known some incredibly smart people. Someone is at the bleeding edge of that bell curve, and I think his name is Elon. I mean, it is, you spend time with him. Elon doesn't just think outside the box. He doesn't know there's a box. It's an incredible thing. Right. And I will say it is an incredible asset to President Trump to have someone like Elon willing to dive in night and day and pour his prodigious talents into fighting for President Trump's agenda. I'll also say there are an awful lot of Democrats and a lot of folks in the corporate media who are desperate to try to drive a wedge between President Trump and Elon Musk. They're doing everything they can to try to create friction. And as far as I can tell, those efforts have been an utter failure. The two are working hand in hand, and that's good for America. Yeah.
I love to hear that.
Amen.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And what's crazy about this is they're digging in. They're exposing all this stuff. We don't really have much glimpse into what's going on behind the scenes other than people being told not to go to work and stuff like that. Yeah. But remember, EPA was drawing gold bars off the deck of the Titanic, right? $20 billion plus. You've got USAID money going, who knows, everywhere, all over the place. You've got layoffs en masse all over the place, telling people to come back to work, resignations. Like, they're shaking it up. Stuff's happening. In fact, yesterday watching a news clip, which I didn't need to include into the show, but I'm listening to the newscaster. I'm like, they are absolutely desperate. Like, they are trying to protect their friends' jobs. Like, they live in these neighborhoods. Like, you can't discount the nature of relationships, right? Like, now that I'm a J6er, it's like I know so many of them, and if I don't know you directly, I know someone you know now. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely like a stamp, like it's a thing. Well, these people, you know, when you look at someone that's married to, like, look at how many of these news anchors are married to someone that works in government and how long they've worked in government and where they've moved around and all the people they know and all the departments and how big their Rolodex is. And they live in the same neighborhoods. And even if you've never worked at the same department, your kids were on the same T-ball team and you sat in the bleacher week after week. You know what I mean? And it's like, hey, I need something done at the Department of Treasury and I work over here at some other USAID, I need a payment released. You know, I just literally walk over there, we have coffee, and next thing you know, the payment's released. Like, this is really how it's happening. Right. This is really what's happening.
If you think about it in terms of like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, these guys are all like 1 degree away from everybody in their district. They're 1 or 2, you know.
Yeah.
They're all connected.
So let's jump before we go to Trump talking about Elon, because that's going to be kind of the resolution of things and what they're doing, which, again, I'm shocked. I really didn't expect DOGE to be more than like a review. The way they're going in and doing this, they're going to open things up. Like, listen, so this is a Project Veritas video. This just came out this morning. This is Travis Combs, branch chief for the Department of Education. So he's up there somewhere in the ladder of hierarchy. I don't care. Your title doesn't matter to me, bro. Okay. You're in it. Okay. So he's in there. He's in charge somewhere. And listen to what he's talking about, because DOGE has moved in now to the Department of Education. And this is a 7 minute clip. We're going to watch all of it. Again, you're going to see clips of this, little 30-second clips on the news and radio for the next couple days. Probably. If people are doing their job, they should. Maybe not. Who knows? But either way, full context. I thought about that too, talking yesterday about playing full clips. I'll play the full clip on what you're going to hear clipped clips throughout the
Right.
day, right? I just want to play the clip. I want you to get the full information because you might have a different opinion than I do. And so I want you to have as much information as I do because we're only as good as the information we have.
Well, you might have a different opinion if you hear the full clip versus what gets clipped and
Yes.
shown in the regular media, because they're going to spin whatever the clip is. And so the clip is going to be clipped very carefully.
Yes, exactly. So here we go.
If they actually knew, yeah, Congress actually knew that we don't have that, there would be a lot of problems. A lot of
Why?
we would be like positioned as like being a sanctuary. You know, like sanctuary cities. We would be like a sanctuary program where we're spending federal dollars on illegal immigrants.
Like they shut off everyone's access to everything. They're like in the building looking through everything.
I'm telling you, it is insanity.
It sounds like a bad movie.
Yeah. It's like Democracy Falling should be like the title of the movie. I mean, if you want to have a conversation with somebody, you do have to take it offline, but you're not supposed to.
I mean, you have to now.
Yeah. So everybody uses that. It's an app called Signal now.
And you're all on like video chat, like.
Yeah, so it's just like a text messaging app. It's like a WhatsApp, but it's encrypted end to end.
Nice. You can do business stuff on there.
You're not supposed to, but yeah.
Okay, so our government, who we hired, and paid for, and works for us, is being sieged by DOGE. And so now they've gone offline and are using secret encrypted signal ants, which I believe in and of itself is a violation of the law. Okay, lock them up, put them all away.
Yep.
Wow.
End of story.
So that was easy. Do you see how this is? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
What are you afraid of? Have your conversations. Oh, you're afraid? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think you worked for someone else? All right, we're going to keep playing here.
All right.
What I do is I oversee a team of 7 staff who develop a professional development project for teachers.
Wow.
And like adult education. So GED programs, high school diploma programs, ESL programs, citizenship, correction bed, different programs like that.
And if they're undocumented, they can do it well.
They can, as long as they like follow the process. So like if they're a DACA recipient, then they have to follow like the rules for DACA. But if they're illegal, it's going to be pretty hard. The one nice thing about the program that I work in is like we don't ask status, and we've like been able to keep that out of our federal statute. Like, so we don't ask them when they enroll what their status is.
How are you able to do that?
Very strategically, we just provide guidance to the bill, and we're like, they'll like put something in, like, oh no, it won't work for the program, so then they don't put it in. Like,
the executive branch here is doing the legislating. They're telling the legislature what to write in and what not to write in. Where's the people's voice in this?
Can't do that part either.
Do you see what I'm saying? Where's the people's voice in this? Again, these people are too close. We tell the legislative branch, oh, they don't put it in, and don't check citizenship for education benefits.
Wow.
There's a lot of maneuvering you have to do. That's the fact.
There's a lot of maneuvering you have to do at the federal level. There's a lot of maneuvering.
What?
Maneuvering. Oh, that's a fancy word. What are some synonyms for maneuvering? There's a lot of collusion. There's a lot of conspiracy.
Corruption.
There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of hustling. There's a lot of moving and shaking. There's a lot of finna do somethings going on over there. Those are from my black brothers.
Okay. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Finna do something. All right.
But Congress.
People try to push through that you have to do that. It's like Congress is trying to push through laws.
Yeah, but then we block them.
So Congress is trying to push through laws, yeah, but then we block it. So you don't have to reach cross party lines for that?
We don't have to reach cross party lines for that.
Well, we just hide it in the law. We just hide it in the bill.
We just hide it in the law, hide it in the bill.
They don't.
They don't. When they mark up the bill, they only read sections.
When they mark up a bill, they only read like sections. It's not a cruise. You gotta read it. And so if you can squeeze something in somewhere, do that.
If you can squeeze something in there, do that.
Yeah.
Don't ask.
And then they only read the part they want to know that. They don't read the whole bill.
They only read the part they want to. They don't read the whole thing. So we mentioned how in the CARES Act had money to fund J6. They just don't read all of the bill. It's that simple. These massive bills. You drop 1,500 pages on my desk, and I'm not likely to read every page of it either. Nor pay my staff to do it after you've done it every day for 365 days a year. There's a lot of bills running through Congress.
Did we talk about the CARES Act yet?
We haven't.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, I mentioned it the other day about how it funded J6, the COVID money, funded my cell room, you know?
What do you know that they can't pass status?
We don't actually put it in there. We just take that out.
That they have to ask status. Right.
Really silent.
Silence.
We don't say that they can or that they should or that they shouldn't.
So ambiguity becomes their friend. We don't put that you have to check or that you don't have to check. We just leave it silent.
We just leave it completely out.
Perfect. So you'll still have that for the next, even though the Department of Ed, that's still in place.
Yeah.
That's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
Because then a lot of funding would be rescinded on that too.
If they actually knew, Congress actually knew that we don't have that.
Oh yeah, if Congress actually knew that we don't ask that,
there would be a lot of
there would be probably a lot of uproar.
Why? Because
we would be positioned as being a sanctuary program. You know, they have sanctuary cities, so the entire Department of Education has become a sanctuary department.
Like being a sanctuary, like sanctuary cities. We would be like a sanctuary program where we're spending federal dollars on illegal immigrants.
We would be a sanctuary program where we're spending federal dollars on illegal immigrants.
We set the student learning and everything. We don't do any of that. Oh. Like we just provide.
Did you hear that?
Yep.
We don't do any of that. We don't have anything to do with learning. We just provide funding to states that carry out public education.
The states carry out public education.
Where is, in relation to the rest of the world, is direct education?
Oh, I mean, probably sitting 30s, 40s.
They know.
Yep.
They know.
Yep.
This is the bureau. We've talked about
the greatest nation on earth is like 40th. What the hell is going on?
We've talked about this since our first episode back. These bureaucrats. Oh, they're just doing their job. Yeah. They're the ones making the laws that are allowing them to operate this way. You have no desire to increase learning outcomes because that's not what you're doing at all. You don't even mean to do it. You acknowledge, the outcomes are crappy, 30, 40 for the greatest nation on earth. And we spend more money on education than any other country. Why? Oh, because it's not about outcomes. It's about jobs. It's about grift. It's about money. It's about an agenda to give illegals from around the world an American education, which, by the way, is subpar.
So that we can maintain our power, so that we can keep grifting
a voting base,
Afghanistan,
a compliant
money laundering,
a compliant sheep herd inside the fence.
Yeah,
that will be grateful that you put me in the fence and kept me from the scary Guatemala. This is what's going on. This is just a branch chief. He gets it. He knows exactly what they're doing. You know, one of the first things a guard said to me one time was he actually quoted codes about how we were breaking the law. And then was like, but I'm not going to whistleblow because, and he rattled off a handful of bigger names up the food chain that were involved. And it would, you know, I could get them in trouble, but then I would probably hate my life. I was like, dude, you know what's going on. Here we go.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, not good. Like they shut off.
Okay, now they're going to start talking about DOGE.
everyone's access to everything. They're like in the building looking through everything.
They're in the building?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like the Doge.
Okay. So some people are like, Doge isn't really doing anything. They're in the building.
This is my man Travis complaining about
them being in the building.
Yeah.
What is Doge again?
It's Elon Musk's like efficiency team. They've like moved into the 7th floor, which is like the secretary's floor. And for his team, his or her team, like moved all of the senior leadership staff out of their offices. So like they're sitting in the hallways and cubicles now.
No longer
and the
needed.
Doge team have like taken like the prime real estate of the floor. Like they put software on our computers that like they tracks keystrokes.
Okay, so Doge moves in, takes over the 7th floor, the executive floor, sends all of them home.
You guys are no longer needed.
And then puts keystroke software on their computers as they're now going through all the information with this incredible AI thing that they're plugging in to look for all of the loopholes that haven't, you know what I'm saying?
That's why they need to use the WhatsApp or whatever.
And Signal, going back to the, we're all on Signal now, knowingly breaking the law.
Yeah,
because we're afraid our day-to-day communication is outside of what's allowable for our position.
Bingo. This is so nuts.
This is, and we're just gonna sit here and watch this. You know what I mean?
Rest them all.
And get hung up on Elon Musk's 13th child or whatever. Like, dude, you're stealing billions of dollars, and we're getting nothing for it. We're paying in cash. We're getting nothing for it.
Well, they funnel that money to the sanctuary cities.
Yeah, we're paying in cash, by the way, is a homage to Rush Limbaugh. We're paying in cash.
So like they know
Maybe I don't do the
what
voice
we're
well enough.
saying.
All right, so they know exactly what we're saying in real time. They put monitors on Microsoft Teams.
In real time, like they put monitors on like Teams, so like they can listen to the calls that we have with like team members or contractors. Like,
So have you been having them offline somewhere else?
I mean, if you want to have a conversation with somebody, you do have to take it offline, but you're not supposed to.
I mean, you have to now.
Yeah. So everybody uses that. It's an app called Signal now.
But we're not supposed to.
And you're all on like video chat or like.
Yeah, so it's just like a text messaging app. It's like a WhatsApp, but it's encrypted end to end.
Nice. You can do business stuff on there.
You're not supposed to, but yeah.
We're not supposed to.
That's an admission.
So you're still having meetings with the team?
Yeah. They can contact me. Yeah.
Offline.
Yeah.
Still watching. Yes. I never heard the app. What was the app?
Signal. Everybody's using it.
Everyone's using it?
Everybody.
Everyone's using
it. Yeah, because I told that all of their computers now have like tracking on them.
How are we doing this? So you're avoiding Elon's team. What are you doing?
So you're avoiding Elon's team. What if he were to find out?
What if he were to find out?
Then it might be like 25, 75.
Then it might be like 25, 75 of keeping my job.
Everyone's like, what are you going to do if they put you on leave? I'm like, go to the beach on the taxpayer's dime. Like, what do you want me to tell you?
I'm shocked more people aren't trying to do that.
Everyone who's on admin, like,
see, everyone who's on admin is like, see ya, they left.
We can't do anything anyway.
Being paid to get margaritas.
If you hear from me and I tell you that I'm in Mexico on the beach, that's fine.
Yay for undercover footage. I mean, this is everywhere. When it's video after video, undercover evidence after undercover evidence, FOIA disclosure after FOIA disclosure. We see this over and over and over again. Government workers work for the people. It doesn't exist for the sake of existence.
No.
It's a necessary evil, as it was called by the founding fathers. I can make all kinds of cases why we need government. I'm not an anarchist. I'm not a sovereign citizen or anything like that. But I'm a democratist. I'm a advocate of a Republican form of government. I believe in individualism, right? I believe in free markets and capitalism. And I have a theological view that compensates for why there's bad things that happen to good people and good things that happen to bad people and why there's suffering in the world. But the way to end that suffering is through the free market, the ability to use my free will. And part of that means being able to contribute to my government in its form and how it works over me, while at the same time applying principles like honoring our father and our mother who set up the government that raised us and has got us this far. But now as an adult, it's my turn to chip in. And when I'm looking at something like this and I'm like, oh, you're afraid of accountability, you're afraid of sunlight, just your normal conversations you have to take offline onto Signal, which makes me wonder why you feel the need to do that in the first place. Mm-hmm. If you're just doing your job, that's great. But if you're in the back of your head saying my job shouldn't be done, my job shouldn't even exist. Do you see what I'm saying? Like even with this guy's, well, it's like 25-75, keep my job. Because really, what do? I pass papers around. I'm a bona fide secretary of sorts. I don't originate anything. I don't make anything. Mm-hmm. Atlas Shrugged and Ayn Rand calls these the second-handers, the moochers, the looters.
He's a pass-through program.
When I went to D.C., and I think I said this on that podcast on January 8th, 2021, said it's like you can hear the vacuum in the sky. The tax dollars are just sucking into this place, and they're returning rules and regulations for that. There's no factories. I don't see smokestacks. I don't see, a bunch of trinkets being made off the Potomac. I don't see any of that. I don't see commercial fishing going out. It's just a giant vacuum with tax dollars to maintain this imperial city that is steeped in segregation and a stratified society. And then they go, oh, how do we fix our neighborhood? Oh, let's do DEI. But since we're regulate for the world, what's good for us is good for you. So now we've got DEI, which, hey, you could probably make an argument in D.C. it could serve some good. Get a black paralegal in there or something, you know what I mean? Like break the barrier. Let's Jackie Robinson this courthouse. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I know I'm being very crass with that, but literally, but you don't need to send DEI out here. When I go on a construction site and there's 10 people, there's 3 Hispanics, 2 blacks, 1 Irish guy, and 4 whites. And we're listening to mariachi music. It's just the way it works. Okay? We desegregated on our own. We live in the Great West. I can't tell you how many times going through this, people in prison would be like, I didn't see segregation until I came to prison.
Right.
Like, yeah. And guess who's in charge of the prisons? The prisons are at your worst, and the inmates, quote unquote, self-segregate with some empowerment by the government. And then the government looks at the unwashed masses, which to them, you're just an inmate in waiting. That's all they see you as, right? They're just watching you to trip up so they can come to your house and tell you to get off that chat room. And here's the rules for peaceful protest, which is none.
You're on deck.
You see what I'm saying? And then you go to prison and you segregate. Oh, yeah, see, you're exactly what we told you. You were. You're a racist. You're this, you're that, you're whatever. I didn't segregate at prison other than just the mandatory have-tos, right? But at the same time, this is like these people, the theys, the blob. This guy's part of the blob. He's not deep state. He's not going to Illuminati meetings and dancing around naked in the Bohemian forest. He's not a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He's the branch chief at the Department of Education.
A branch chief.
But he's got a Kool-Aid stain on his upper lip from drinking the Kool-Aid over there, man. You know what? That's what we're up against. So when DOGE is on the 7th floor digging deep, I hope they find it. And here's why Unique is so great. And this is right from Trump's own words. Think about the mentality. This man has no box. He's now sitting at the top of your building. He's got keystroke trackers. He's using Grok or whatever AI he is to go through and analyze this stuff in rapid time to see where the money's actually going. He's already shut down USAID. They've already said they're going to shut down the Department of Education. They're laying off IRS workers. The Department of Justice over there is over there just like blue lighting agents and attorneys out of there, right? Like their world is, to quote at Peasants Pod _, which I don't believe is my Twitter, burning down. I misspelled the word burn if I spelt it at all, but burning down, right? And we're out here like, nice. Yeah. Here's Trump talking about Elon.
Done. He's a leader.
Yeah.
He really is. He gets it done. You get a lot of tech people, and you have people that are good with tech, but he gets it done. You know, I said in real estate, you had guys that would draw beautiful renderings of a building, and they'd draw the rendering. It would be great, and you say, great, when are you starting? But they were never able to get it built. They couldn't get the financing. They couldn't get the approvals. It would never get done. And then you have other guys that are able to get it done. You know, they could just get it done. That was in real estate. Same thing in this. He gets it done. So when he said that, he said, you know, when you sign these executive orders, a lot of them don't get done, and maybe the most important ones. And he would take that executive order that I'd sign, and he would have those people go to whatever agency it was. When are you doing it? Get it done. Get it done. And some guy that maybe didn't want to do it, all of a sudden, he's signing. He just doesn't want to be bothered. Done. He's a leader.
Yeah. Did you hear that?
He gets it.
So he's saying, you know, your executive orders go nowhere. We know that happens because it ends up on this branch chief's desk, and he's like, me no likey. Me city in inbox long time, right? Like, I mean, it's that bad. So here's Elon. He's like, he's just going to get it done. Oh, yeah, catch a rocket with toothpicks flying back to Earth? Sure, I can do that. Here, let's figure it out. Here, we need to, you know, set up something for some whatever. Yeah, let's get 1/3 of the generators in the United States in our parking lot and fire up our AI machine. You know what I mean?
The internet's
so we can
not
come
so
up
good.
so we can use the AI machine to calculate the solution to our power demand problems.
Yeah, or rural internet's not so good.
Skylink. Yeah, exactly. This is a getter done, and he's in the government right now. What is possible here? This could be amazing. I'm very excited for what could be happening. And so is the rest of the world. But remember, there's always two sides to every story. So as we wrap up today, just remember, as we're clapping and is so excited to watch those IRS agents go home and watch, even if they are on the taxpayer dime for the beach a little bit, they're doing less damage to America on the beach on the taxpayer dime drinking margaritas than sitting in the 7th floor of the Department of Education. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, yes. I'm okay with some paid vacation for some long time, for you guys for some long time. And in some ways, as long as the government does nothing, we're better off.
Yep.
Okay. But remember, not everybody feels that way.
So, like, President Trump is, like, he's having Elon go through all of this stuff to, like, see where America's taxpayer dollars are going to. And, like, they're finding so much corruption. And I just wish that they would stop because it's really, like, none of their business. And I enjoy paying my taxes to other countries. And I love that it goes into, like, other people's pockets instead of mine. And I just really love that. And I hate that he's deporting all of these people because I also enjoy all of my tax dollars going to pay for all of their living, even though they came here illegally. And I just, everything is like not going according to plan. Like he's like kept his word on everything he said. Like everything he said, he kept his word on.
Not bad.
Like presidents aren't supposed to do that. This is the stupidest thing ever. I just wish I'd stay at what? I hate him too.
What?
Just remember, not everybody's happy about it.
I'm sorry.
He's just doing everything he said he would do, and he's making government efficient and not spending our taxpayer dollars on illegals. I love it. I love it. We're here for it. I'm glad to be free. Thank God for President Trump. Holy cow. All right, guys. Thank you. That's it. And you can join me on Twitter at Gone4Months. Now, a little background just so everybody knows. This is the old Twitter at Peasants Pod. So if you're already following me on Twitter, then you might remember that one. But when I got indicted and everything happened, I had to put it on private and silent, and I never posted. And I changed the vanity to Gone4Months just so people wouldn't search for it. And, you know, now I can't change it back. So I'm just Gone4Months. And you can also find the show Twitter page at Peasants Per. That's PER at the end, Peasants Per. And of course, please go join us on the webpage, peasantsperspective.com. You can find all my essays and writings from prison, as well as the video of the podcast I did after January 6th, which I encourage longtime listeners to go listen to and new listeners to go listen to, because then you can really know who I am. And of course, you can always make a donation for my wife's charity that helps out children of incarcerated kids. Currently, they've got about 80 kids they're helping, and they've got more kids applying, and they do need donations. So leftbehindandwithout.org. Once again, that's leftbehindandwithout.org. All right. Thank you very much, guys. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.